Here's a question I don't think anyone can fully answer, no matter how long they sit with it. Why do we keep hurting people we love the most, even when we don't want to? Not the strangers, not the people we don't care about or know about, the people closest to us, the ones we claim we do anything for. Stick with me, because I think there's an answer buried but underneath that question, and it's older than you would expect. There's a Latin phrase theologians have used for over 1,000 years to describe what's actually wrong with us as human beings. It's called incurvatus in se. It means curved in on itself. Picture the self like this, like a shape that's supposed to open outward toward other people, toward the world, toward something bigger than itself, as in God, potentially. And instead, it folds back. It curls in. It starts absorbing itself instead. That's the phrase. Now let's talk about where it actually comes from and why it might be the most honest explanation of human behavior you've ever heard. A guy named Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King Jr., there's another Martin Luther, is a Reformation guy. He was writing commentary on the book of Romans back in 1515. And he wrote this line that stopped me in my tracks the first time I really sat with it. Our nature has been so deeply curved in upon itself that it not only bends the best gifts of God towards itself and enjoys them, but it fails to realize that it's doing this. I'm going to read that last part again. It fails to realize it's doing this. That's the part that makes this different from just saying people are selfish. Selfishness, we notice, we feel guilty about, probably after the fact. We can point to it on ourselves and go, yeah, that was selfish of me. This is talking about something sneakier, something that operates underneath your awareness. You can be doing it right now and have no idea. So, what does this actually look like in real life? Picture a healthy version of a person, like an open curve. Imagine an arc or a half circle facing outward. Attention flows out, love flows out. You exist, in a sense, for something beyond yourself. Now picture that same arc folding backward, closing into a loop. And instead of energy going out toward other people, it just circles back to you. Everything gets processed through one question, whether you realize it or not. What does this mean for me? What do I get out of this? How does this make me look, make me feel, protect me, benefit me, validate me? It's all about me, and more me. And here's the part that makes it genuinely hard to catch. This isn't just showing up as greed or cruelty or the obviously bad stuff. You can be religious and still be curved inward, using God as a kind of tool for your own peace of mind or to feel superior to people who believe differently. You can be generous and still be curved inward, giving in a way that makes you feel good about yourself or gets you noticed or lets you feel like you're the good one in the room. You can even be self sacrificing and still be curved inward, martyring yourself in a way that's secretly more about control or about being needed than it is about actually loving anyone. The curve is sneaky specifically because it can disguise itself as virtue. Now let's go back further because this idea didn't start with Luther. There's a Greek word in the New Testament of the Bible for sin. The word is hamartia, and it's actually an archery term. It means missing the mark, like you shot the arrow and it didn't land where it was supposed to. That's a completely different picture than the one a lot of us grew up with. Sin isn't necessarily you're evil, it's you were aimed wrong, which raises an obvious next question. Aimed wrong compared to what? What were we supposed to be aimed at in the first place? There's a guy named Augustine. He lived in North Africa in the 4th century. He was a brilliant thinker, genuinely one of the most honest writers about his own inner life that's ever existed. And he wrote an entire book called Confessions, basically tracking his own curve in real time. And what's remarkable is he wasn't a bad guy by any normal standard. He was smart, successful, respected. He tried to find satisfaction basically through everything that was available to him, the same things that we do today: relationships, career success, intellectual achievement. He even joined a serious religious movement for almost a decade looking for answers. And every single time, something in him stayed restless, not because those things were bad, but because he was using them as substitutes they were never built to provide. And substitutes, no matter how good they are, can't hold the weight of what you're asking them to carry. He opens the whole book with a line that's become kind of famous, and you might recognize it. Our heart is restless until it rests in you. That restlessness he's talking about, that's the curve. That's the self trying to find its center in literally everything except the one thing it was actually built for. So here's where it gets practical, because I don't want this to be just a nice idea kind of thing where you just nod along to it. The opposite of the curve isn't just stop wanting things or empty yourself of all desire. That's not really the fix, nor do I think it's even possible. The opposite is a different direction entirely. Picture the same arc, but instead of folding backward into a closed loop, it stays open, facing outward, toward other people, toward something bigger than yourself. And you probably felt both of these already, even if you didn't have language for them. The closed loop, the quiet exhaustion of a life that's organized around keeping yourself protected, keeping yourself validated, keeping yourself at the center of everything. And the open curve, that surprising lightness you feel in a moment when you genuinely forgot about yourself because you were caught up in something or someone else. Both of those are real, and most of us are living somewhere in the tension between them most of the time. So, back to the archery term, hamartia, missing the mark, not because you're evil, but because you're aimed wrong. And I think the question we're sitting with, not just today, but honestly for a long time, is the same question the tradition's been asking for 25 centuries. What were you actually aimed at to begin with? I don't think that question has a quick answer. I think it's one of those questions you keep living your way into, but I think it's worth asking anyway. In case I lost you, the curve, inward curve and outward curve. Essentially, when we're living according to an outward orientation, we're more rooted in love, more rooted in giving and self giving to others around us. We're more connected to God because our attention and our focus is outward. When we're living oriented inward, that's when we're more focused on our self validation, our self comfort, preservation, protection, focused on how it benefits us. And nevertheless, we need both of these energies to stay alive and survive in this world, essentially, and even thrive. But it comes down to the moment of truth comes down to when we're in moments of inconvenience, of pressure, of maybe insult. Your curve, the default curve that you exist in, is the path that you follow. So when we think about if we're curved inward or outward, it's not a steady thing that is never changing. The question becomes, what's your default when you're under pressure? And that's what the curve is in its most literal sense. That's what the basis of sin, where that word has come from. Now, most of us know sin to be a list of things that you cannot do: lie, cheat, steal, sexual immorality. But all those things come back to the root of the word hamartia, which we now know means missing the mark. So, If any of this sounds interesting to you, if you have other questions on it, stay tuned. We'll be exploring more things related to the curve, like the cost of living outward, open, and how this affects relationships, how the curve can show up in disguise. Um, Another question I had is is there such thing as the neutral? Can we fall into a bucket of not being inward or outward? So these are all questions that I have come up with as I learn more about this topic. And essentially, this whole channel would just be me seeking answers to questions that I have, um, and sharing it with you guys. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. And if you like it a little bit, give it a like, comment something that you thought was interesting or how the curve relates to you, and definitely subscribe to the channel for more. There's a lot more content that'll be coming.